Awesome. Right. Hi, I'm here with Dr. Melissa Sell today, and I'm just so excited to be having this conversation. So thank you for joining me, Melissa.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so happy to be here.
Cool. Well, I'm going to ask you about, to probably introduce yourself, but I just want to say that I found you last year um, on Instagram because you were just talking about some things that really aligned with me. And I wanted to reach out and ask you specifically about, we're hopefully going to be talking about food today, because I have been on a diet since, the age of 13 in the whole diet industry, and this food's good and that food's bad. So I'd love to pick your brains and hear what you have to say about food versus beliefs about food. But first of all, tell us a little bit about your work and what led you to actually be doing what you're doing, if that's all right.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much for having me. I just am so delighted. I love to meet with people and have these conversations. So this is awesome. I am a chiropractor. That's where the doctor and Dr. Melissa Sell comes from. I right out of high school, I started working at a chiropractic office, and being in this environment, I learned so much about health. Like these, and if you've ever been to a chiropractor who does holistic lifestyle type of chiropractic, they do nutrition and detox and teaching people about vaccinations and childbirth interventions and all this stuff. So I entered this world where I'm like, whoa, this is awesome. You can, change your lifestyle, eat a certain way, do these certain external things, and you can prevent disease and you can get healthy. And so I just dove headfirst into that world and went to chiropractic school and learned and trained in nutrition and detoxification and all the kind of healthy behavioral lifestyle modifications. And that was my thing for a very long time. I would teach workshops and classes on what to eat and what not to eat and toxins in food and educate people about, what they were putting into their bodies. And, I, I was notorious for every time I would come home from chiropractic school and go visit my family, I would throw away everything in the kitchen and in the refrigerator and then go buy healthy things. And I'd lecture everyone about, this food has this additive in it, and this does this, and this causes inflammation, and this food causes cancer, and you need to stop eating this, and you must stop doing this, and you have to stop drinking soda. And it was like, people were like, okay, watch out. Melissa's coming home this weekend.
Yeah.
And so that was me. Like I was the, tell everybody the preacher about nutrition and healthy lifestyle, and if you don't get your act together, you're going to develop disease and die early. And don't you love me? You don't want to do that. And so, from this place of what I thought was love, what I thought was, sharing and education, I put a lot of guilt trips on people and made them feel, bad potentially about the foods that they were eating, or teaching that, this or that food or ingredient is poisonous and toxic. And so if you eat it, you have a weak moment, and then you have this whole idea in your mind. And so that's kind of the world I have come from. And I have gone through personal evolutions in my understanding of health and the body and consciousness, and what really is the food versus the being, the individual. And so about 4 years ago, I came across Germanic new medicine, which is the work of Dr. Hammer, and it totally turned upside down everything that I thought I knew about health. Like I said, I thought I like had it on lockdown, all of the truth about the way things work. And then I learned Dr. Hammer's work, and he discovered that what we look at, like we look at something like cancer. And I used to think that cancer, it was a disease in the body. It was the result of a poor immune system, of you damaging your cells for such a long time, or your body's really toxic. And here your body has developed a tumor or a cancer as a, because of the fact that you've been toxic and your immune system's been dysfunctional for a really long time. So that was the story that I had in my head. That's what I taught people. That's why I was like, avoid sugar, because sugar paralyzes your immune system, and your immune system kills cancer. And if your immune system is paralyzed, then the cancer grows. And so that was the paradigm that I was teaching people. But Dr. Hammer's work changed all of that. And he discovered through his own personal journey, where he had a tragic loss. He lost his 17-year-old son. And then a few months after this loss, he discovered that he had developed testicular cancer. And, he started making connections and asking questions, and he had access, because he was an internist and he, worked in an oncology unit. He had access to cancer patients, and he started talking to them, and he discovered that every cancer patient had a shocking trauma. But beyond just that, because the connection between stress and disease has been connected for a very long time, but not just that stress and disease are related, he found that specific types of traumas and shocks that people experience. For his case, it was a tragic loss. Every man who had testicular cancer also had a tragic loss. And they also had a very specific ring formation in their brain on a brain scan. And so he put all of these puzzle pieces together and started seeing that cancer, it is not a dis-ease. It is not a dysfunction. It's not a wrongness or brokenness within the body. It is an intelligent adaptation to a state of shock, to a state of stress, of your body being caught off guard by something going on in your external environment, and adaptations are taking place. So, and this really actually helped me tremendously, because when I was in the world of, bad lifestyle causes dysfunction in the body, which causes disease, every so often a person within the health community who was doing all of the things, all of the nutritional, all of the supplementation, all of the detox, they were like this pedestal person of health, they would develop cancer. And it would just blow my mind. How is this possible for this person who's so healthy, who's taken so much effort to become healthy? They've developed cancer. That literally, it was tough to be in that paradigm, to think, how is all of the stuff that I'm teaching, how did it not prevent cancer in this person? So that's always kind of lingered in the back of my mind. But with Dr. Hammer's work, it's like, this makes perfect sense. You literally could be the healthiest person on the planet with all of the best foods and all of the cleanest everything. But if you experience a specific type of shocking trauma that sufficiently catches your organism, your beingness, your psyche off guard, your body is going to adapt in a particular way, which may manifest in a cancer diagnosis, depending on the intensity, the duration, and all of that. So that was a very long way to get to the point of where I am now, of teaching GNM and helping people to understand that when you develop symptoms in your body, what I used to think was nutritionally induced. It was either deficiency or toxicity. There's something that you are doing, an external behavior, a doing that is off, that you need to adjust. You need to take this supplement, cut out this food, eat these foods, don't eat those foods. My approach used to be very external, behaviorally oriented. But now we go inside. It's all internal. What is your relationship to your world? How are you feeling when you're eating? What is your perception of certain foods, of food in general? So we look now at your consciousness, your state of being while you're eating. We look at if you have allergies to foods or intolerances or beliefs about food, it's not the food, it's you. It was the state of being. So a child developing, allergies to food, it's not the dairy, it's not the grains, it's the state that the child was in. It was chaos or turmoil in the home going on while you're eating your Wheaties or while you're having your macaroni and cheese. And these foods get flagged in your nervous system. And so it seems as though the food is causing the problem. Every time I eat the food, I get the rash. Every time I eat the food, I get the diarrhea. And so we think it's the food and we try to cut all the foods out. But when you really look at why is my body reacting in this way, it's not the food, it's your state of consciousness.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. I mean, I get this, and I've come into it in a completely different way. I've come into it through the law of attraction teachings, and then Anita Morjani's story. I'm not sure if you come across her, and she was a healthy lady that had near-death experience, stage 4 cancer. But I think for some people listening, and I know certainly in my circles, this concept of food not causing these things is, especially when it comes to allergies and all those things, it's like people it's like new. It is new. And this is why I wanted to speak to you about it, because even when it comes to illness, Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, and Bruce Lipton, and all these different pockets of people are pulling together a similar presentation of how life internally, I suppose, in our environment affects us, not necessarily food and the things that we think that does.
Absolutely. And yeah, as far as like on the law of attraction perspective of things too, it's what am I, believing about this food? What do I expect? What am I, if you eat a food and you're like, oh, this is a naughty food, I know I'm going to feel bloated after this, I know I'm going to, I'm going to pay for this later, that expectation in and of itself, it does poison your food in a sense. It does, lower the vibration of the food, this whole interaction. And that, when you can, eat in a state of peace. And so when you're starting to kind of look at this and you're like, okay, I really thought it was the food for a very long time. It may take you some time to loosen your grip on that idea, and so this isn't something that you just have to believe and go out and eat everything. It's like, it really is. It's a gradual process of taking your power back from the food. Because when we point to an external anything and we say that is responsible for my well-being or for my health or lack thereof, you've given your power to the food. And so when you can, it takes some time to kind of gather up your power and detach it from the food and realize it's been me all along. And so just be patient with yourself as you experiment with what that's like. This is one of my big years with food. It was, I think, in 2009. And I was in chiropractic school. And a lot of these guys that I was going to school with, they were doing the 80-10-10 raw vegan diet. And so I read the book and I was like, this book, it made perfect sense to me. Everything that they were saying, I was like, oh, of course, this is how we're supposed to eat. And so I did it for 30 days. And my goal at the time, like I was like, oh, my skin's going to be so clear and everything is going to be so much better. And so I did 30 days, and like 80-10-10 is hard. It is so hard. You can't like do anything. You're eating big bowls of just like raw vegetables and like a small handful of seeds, and, eating bananas and all this stuff. And, in that same summer, this other organization I was a part of, they came out with a nutrition book, and that nutrition book was more like kind of paleo keto sort of thing. And I read that book and I was like, this also makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And so I was like completely divided. And so everything that I ate, I was like, oh, this fruit, it's high in sugar and that's inflammatory. Oh, but this meat, my digestive tract, I don't know if it's meant to eat meat. And so I was like, I had such stomach problems for like a month or two because I was trying to figure out what's true, what's right. And, just looking at the fact that there are people thriving on all sorts of different diets, and acknowledging that, I think, is so powerful, where it's like there are people thriving on all different diets. And that really the thing that makes the difference is the person who's eating the diet. Do you believe in it? Are you conflicted about it? Do you, feel like you should be doing something different? Are there things that seem to be working for you, but you've got the voices of other people in your head? I posted, I'm friends with some new person on Facebook, and I posted this homemade pizza that I made, and they're like, oh, grains, that's so bad for your digestive system. And I like this juice I had with like turmeric. Oh, people think turmeric's good, but it's this. And I'm like, none of what your opinions are about the foods I'm eating mean anything to me. Like, you might believe that very strongly, and you might be trying to help me by sharing that information with me. But if I were a more vulnerable person, that could really like cause some conflict within me of like, oh gosh, should I be eating that? Maybe I shouldn't. And so your peace of mind, and you may need to just really sit with some of these ideas for a while to figure out what's right for you, because your body and innately, your cells know, your body knows, your intuition knows what amount of foods is right for you at any given time. But you might not be able to hear that voice because you have, so many experts' voices in your head and ideas and past experiences. Oh, remember that time you ate this and you got sick? And it was like, yes, I remember that. And I actually remember I was having a big fight with my partner. And so it wasn't the food, it was the fight. And that got latched on to the food. And so now I think every time I eat this, it causes the problem. And so you just have to keep going back to the source, which is you.
Totally. And as I said, so I sort of watched my parents, sort of, who a lot of my family have been overweight, should we say, most of their lives. So I've watched them all go to diet groups, and it was kind of like a way of life. My mum writing on a board of what she's eaten and this, it's been literally ingrained, and I'm still on this journey. So to try and literally go, right, I'm just going to eat anything now, it like you say, it doesn't necessarily work like that when these beliefs are so deeply, ingrained. But what's interesting is I unschool my children, so they don't go to school. They live a life following their joy, like it's cool, it's really cool. But with my firstborn, we kind of went wonky with the food. I didn't let him have chocolate till he was this, and then so I kind of I didn't mess up as such. It was all a learning thing, but I did know that I didn't want to do the same thing as what was happening to me. The typical finish of this and pudding after and all this kind of thing. I just wanted him to just listen to his body. And especially now with my second one, who's 4, he's nearly 4, he has been completely unschooled with food. He can have what he wants to eat. Like he chooses his food. And it's been a challenge for me because I'm just like, oh, just let him, it's fine. And thankfully, my ex-partner, their dad, is totally on board, because he said that when he was a kid, he was left to it, and he had this pocket money, and he just ate whatever he wanted. And he's a triathlete, he's an Ironman, like he has no food issues. He's just a healthy guy because he's got a healthy outlook. That's his mindset. Thankfully, anyway. So with my child, it's really funny because I found some chocolate on the side earlier, and I'd given them both some chocolate, and he'll eat what he wants and leaves it, and it's no biggie to him. It's just fascinating to observe that, though, because I've had to unlearn everything that I have been, and watching these children be able to choose. And what I've started doing is I journal from my body. So I've healed some things on my body, psoriasis, piles, really bad piles, from going within and journaling, asking my body questions and journaling. And I get the answers. I use homeopathy as well, and I think that's really magical because it kind of it'll guide me. So it might say, phone your Chinese doctor, or I've spoke to a GNM person, but that's what I sort of now say to my kiddies, that your body is a being of its own. And the other day they knew we had some strop waffles in, these waffle things. So I said, what do you want for breakfast, guys? And they were like, waffles. And I said, just check in with your bodies first. You can have waffles, just check in with your bodies, and then let me know what you want for breakfast. And my 8-year-old, the older one, he went, I could hear him kind of go quiet, so he must have been asking his body. And then he went, no, I'll have scrambled eggs, I'll have the waffle later. And I just thought, wow, this is great. Whereas the 3-year-old was like, no, I want a waffle. My body says waffle. I was like, that's fine. But we're learning this, and this is new to all of us, but it's fascinating because I want them to try, I want them to be able to hear and not lose that, not have these voices because they don't go to school. They've never been to the doctor because they're not ill, because they live a life of ease, which is the opposite of dis-ease. So it's almost like, wow, this is so exciting. So it's me's the one that still got these ideas of food, but self-healing, I know that's something that you quite big on.
Yes, I absolutely love that. And I just think that teaching kids that, to not have good, bad, naughty foods, treat foods, this, like all this categorization, because there is something inherently about prohibition, hello, that makes people want things more. When it's off limits, when it's bad, when it's naughty, when you shouldn't have it, there's like this rebellious spirit that wants it all the more. And so that's why anytime governments or parents try to prohibit things, you put it on a pedestal, you make it sexy, you make it attractive, you make them want it. And so it really does it. And when you make something bad and off limits, it perverts it. It causes your relationship to it to become one of, oh, I shouldn't want that, but I do, but this push pull weird. I mean, it makes things weird when it doesn't have to be. And when you do this, and because that's the thing too, like when you are kind of decontaminating your beliefs about food, oftentimes you will have to kind of go overboard. You know what I mean? Like on milkshakes and on treats and waffles and all of the things that have been off limits for a while. You have to do it to show yourself that you can do it. You know what I mean? That this is fine. This isn't the problem. This isn't the thing that makes me fat. This isn't the thing that causes the problem. I have to figure out how to develop a good relationship with this thing. And so sometimes you kind of have to go off the rails for a little bit, and then you recalibrate and you say, you know what? Actually, I do feel better if I have eggs, if I have protein before having a sweet treat, because my physiology lets me know, like, too much sugar on an empty stomach, I feel absolutely sick. Even though I'm allowed to do it, my body says, that's not necessarily the best thing that we want. And so that's how you can trust yourself to hone and calibrate and like reel yourself back into what is perfectly aligned as far as a diet and amount of food for you. But you do sometimes have to just like let things go, completely decontaminate, eat the pizza every night this week, and then you'll come to a center and say, okay, now that I've done that, now that I've seen that that's okay and I can do that, my body is letting me know that I don't have as much energy as I'd like to have, I'm not feeling as vibrant as I'd like to feel, so let's go back to the drawing board and figure out, what does my body really want? But you do have to, for a period of time, just kind of let go of the restrictions, let go of the limitations, let go of the shoulds and the oughts and the musts and the can'ts, and like really let yourself play in that realm for a little while, just to see what happens, just to see, can you start getting in rapport, and then dial it back in and figure out, okay, now what's best for me.
Yeah, totally. It's freedom, isn't it? It's freedom. And do you think then that the whole, I hesitate to use the word system, but you know what I mean? The out there, the whole thing that comes through to us is the good and bad. Like we had a period of time, I think when I was younger, butter was supposed to be really bad for us, and then there's always been something that's been bad for us. And of course, that conflict is always going to be there, because it could be anything. It could be, I was having a conversation with someone last night, an interview type thing we were talking about sex actually, and how, when we make sex wrong and there's lots of shame around it, it goes underground, and it's created all the dark stuff and the pornography and all the stuff because we want to do these things that are naughty and bad and everything, because of the judgment around them, and it just limits us having these judgments.
Absolutely. Yes. With all of anything that you make bad, anything that you make wrong, anything that you make naughty, like the physical body, this is wrong, this is bad, cover up. And then you look at cultures where like people are topless and they don't wear very much clothing. And it's no big deal because it's not prohibited. And really, when you get to this place of freedom and everything, and okayness and experimentation and trying things, it's like when you let things be okay, people will gravitate to what makes sense. But when you suppress and oppress and don't talk about certain things and you make things wrong, I mean, it creates so much conflict, especially for a young child who's like, okay, I have these feelings or these cravings, or sexuality is kind of bubbling up, but I'm pushing it down because it's weird. And so that's where just freedom is so powerful, and allowing a person, an individual, to check in with themselves instead of all of the authority figures in their heads, because that's what really screws us up, is we've got all these authority figures in our heads. But we also have this deep need for freedom, this deep need to do what we want to do. And so even if, and this is where it sometimes backfires, when someone tries to give you really, really good advice, instead of teaching you to make good choices for yourself and trust your intuition, I really want you to make these choices because I've lived my whole life and I've come to these conclusions, and I want you to avoid all of the bad things that I went through. So it comes from this place that's very well meaning, but it lacks an understanding for human nature because that's where the most well meaning parent who like raises their child exactly the way that they, think that they've figured it all out. And if they would just follow these rules, that child has a spirit of freedom within them, and they will rebel even against good information, even against your best advice, because they don't have the freedom to choose. And so that's why I love the unschooling thing, because it's just instilling the sense of you can trust yourself, you can trust your likes, you can trust your interests, you can trust that voice within that guides you that says, mommy, I want to read this book. Let's play with I want to learn how to build this, or I want to learn how to do that. That is so brilliant. And I love that you're doing that. And I hope more parents go that route of allowing, learn from your children. They have more to teach you than you have to teach them, because they are decontaminated. They don't have all of the years of indoctrination. And so like your experience being raised in like a diet family, like food has, so much baggage. There's so many attachments. There's so much, avoidance, and I don't want this, and this, this pull push kind of thing. And so you got to cut all those cords as best you can. Anytime you see a food and you have I shouldn't, you got to cut that cord. Like, what does it look like to be free from judgment about that food? What does it look like to be free from the idea? And this for me has been I'm a very visual thinker. And so like when I think about things visually, I really experience it in that way. One of the examples, because I used to think, and this was huge for me with food, is I thought that acne was the result. Well, first, growing up, I thought acne was the result of bacteria getting in my pores. And the idea that I had like cemented in my mind was like the Neutrogena commercial of a pore and a bacteria getting in there, and how you need to wash your face to get the bacteria out of the pore so it doesn't cause the zit. And so what did I do? I religiously washed my face like a crazy person. And I was like, oh, if I just wash it enough, if I keep the bacteria off of it, I will have clear skin. But that didn't work. And I would wash my face and put rubbing alcohol on it and do all the things to try to kill the bacteria that I thought was causing my problem. But I still had the problem. So I was very depressed about this arrangement, because there was nothing I could do to fix it. And then as I evolved as a person, I was like, oh, it's nutrition. If I just eat the right foods and avoid the right foods, then my skin will be perfect. And I did that. Like when I did the 80-10-10, my skin didn't clear up in the way that I expected it to. I was like, my skin should be perfect. I'm not putting anything in my body that other than, these pure whole foods didn't clear up. Then I was convinced that it was bad oils or lack of probiotics. So like once I got on the sauerkraut train, I was like, oh, the sauerkraut's going to save me, and a good gut bacteria, that's going to make my skin the way, but I'd still have breakouts. It drive me crazy. Once I thought I had something figured out, then, my body would say, oh, it's not that. GNM's the only thing that has made sense out of acne patterns for me. It is not the food. It is not the bacteria. It is my perception and experience of feeling attacked or feeling soiled. When I feel attacked or soiled, either by food. So like every time I had this pattern, anytime I go out to a restaurant, after I learned about bad oils and adulterated, like seed and vegetable oils, how bad they are, and they're inflammatory and toxic and all of this, every time I would eat out at a restaurant, I would get a breakout. And so would my boyfriend. We both had this pattern where we're like, oh, we can't eat out because of the bad oils and all of this. But when I got that idea out of my mind, that it's not the food, it's my experience of feeling soiled when I'm eating the food, thinking, oh, I shouldn't, I really hope I don't get a breakout. Boom, there the breakout comes. And so I've detached that. I no longer have that idea, and I don't eat out often because I don't like to. I prefer to have control over my food and the stuff that's in it. But every so often we'll go to like Chipotle, or we'll go to, some type of grass-fed burger place, and I will love it, and I will not have any problems, and I will feel so great because I've changed my relationship and my story around the bad oils and the bad foods. And so that's just a personal example that was so transformative for me, that it isn't the food, it is my experience that causes the acne breakout. If I, pluck my eyebrow and it hurts, a little, and I get a zit there, it's like, oh, I had an attack conflict. Or if my dog licks my face after, being out in the yard eating God knows what, and I feel, oh, gross, that was nasty. I have a feeling soil, and I, we'll get it. And so by changing my perception of these external things, my skin is pretty much great all the time. Like, but every so often there'll be a little something. I'll say, oh, that's so interesting. I kind of love when it happens because it shows me a moment in time I was caught off guard and I had a split-second automatic, reaction to it. And my body responded because that's what it's programmed to do, is to respond to me. I am the mediator between the external world and my internal world. And so what I am communicating to my body, that's all that matters.
That's incredible, isn't it? It makes so much sense, especially when, say, two people eat exactly the same diet and one can lose. Because I ran Slimming World for 7 years. I worked for Slimming World. So I think this is another reason why this is part of my journey. So I was the woman at the front of the very slim fit, because I was a really slim, really fit woman. And I had a class of 150. It was quite a pretty big class because I was so enthusiastic about it. I wanted to help women lose weight. So I was so many things kind of not wrong, but I look back and just think, oh dear. But some people would literally be there each week really upset because they'd stuck to this plan and they'd gained weight, and there was me being told, and I was trained to just not believe them. Like no one believed them. You kind of sit there going, okay, well, we all know you haven't. And it's a joke in the whole slimming industry, I suppose. But I look back and think, oh my goodness, so misguided. And we're still, people are still, this information is really not out there yet, which is why I just really wanted to have this. And the GNM isn't as, I think there's one practitioner in the UK. There's only one in the UK. And so where would you suggest people kind of, apart from coming to you as well, are there books, or where would someone kind of start to learn themselves about if they were curious about something?
Oh yeah. So my YouTube channel has a lot of videos. It's a great just starter. Look up GNM 101 on YouTube just to kind of start wrapping your head around it. On my website, I actually have a whole list of resources. So if you go to drmelissasell.com and go to my blog, there's a post called Getting Started with German New Medicine. And so you can see all the different books. I've got links to different books and training courses. And so there's a lot of information out there. And, just anywhere that you can just start learning and start observing. Because once you get the handle on the 5 biological laws and you understand, okay, I have digestive issues. I have, chronic IBS or something like that. It's like I have an indigestible morsel conflict. And so what does that mean? And that's what you have to figure out what that means for you. There is something in your life around the time that your digestive issues began, there's something that you were having difficulty processing. Could have been an anger, could have had an element of, I want this thing, or I'm starving without it, or I need it, or I can't accept it, or I cannot, process the fact that this thing is going on. It's indigestible to me. And so your body has been helping you. Your body, the reason that we develop these issues is the body adapts and adds additional cells within the digestive tract, depending on, the type of conflict, the location in the colon or in the intestines, the more deep and dark, like if you have a dirty, something just like ugly, like an ugly indigestible morsel conflict tends to manifest further down in the digestive tract, like a shitty situation, something that's just so shitty, like literally it shows up in the rectum, in the colon, in these certain areas, and it's so interesting, our language, the metaphors and I can't stomach him. I can't, I want to bite his head off. Literally, we want to do that. When you want to bite someone's head off, but you can't, that's a bite conflict. And it will manifest as like a cavity in your teeth, as adaptation within your teeth, because you want to bite, but you're not allowed to. You can't say what you need to say, so you have to hold back. And so it's learning this whole new amazing language, that these experiences and the fact that we have words to describe these things, it's built out of biology. Like, where does language come from? Where do these analogies come from? They come from like these deep internal experiences. And that's the coolest thing about GNM, is Dr. Hammer has figured out how these things manifest, where, what we used to think was autoimmune disease, the body's just attacking itself. The body never attacks itself. arbitrarily. There's always a reason. There's something going on within your experience that you're not fully conscious of. And so your symptoms tell the story. And so we can look at all of your symptoms and trace it back to a conflict and look at how is that conflict operating in my day-to-day experience if the symptom is chronic. It's really cool even to look at back at like one-time things that's not chronic for you. I had a super interesting experience with a meatball. I was at a family member's house and they offered me some food and I was like, oh, sure. And it was a bowl and it had a couple of meatballs and like marinara sauce. And I took a bite of it and it was the texture of it was really gross. It was like, I did not like the texture of this meatball at all, but I was in this group of people. And so I just swallowed it. I didn't like it at all. And I was upset about it. But after it was over, like I started getting a scratchy throat and I started, my voice started changing. I had this, what would be kind of like the beginnings of what you would think of like strep throat of like, oh, my throat's really sore and my voice is going. And then I started eventually coughing and I had like all of these symptoms and was coughing all night long. I can't swallow this conflict when I tried to eat this meatball. So it wasn't the meatball, it was my experience of it because there were other people eating it and they were fine with it. They didn't have a problem. They didn't develop an issue. But this meatball for me, and if you think of it in the sense of it gave me strep throat because I couldn't swallow it, but it was my perception. It didn't give me anything. I had an experience, my body adapted to it in that moment. And then the body had to restore and repair the tissues that were adapted in that moment, which is where my symptoms came from. So yes, that blog post will guide you through all sorts of different places to access resources for learning more about GNM. There's a link for a book on there for helping children. There's this mother in Romania, and she's been working with GNM with her children for a really long time. And so she, helps her kids. She talks to her kids in their sleep to help them, resolve their own conflicts and the issues that they're having. So if your kid has an earache or a tummy ache or a rash, you can help to decode and understand their experience and then coach them through it and help them, experience a sense of peace instead of saying, oh, you can't ever eat this food again because this food causes your tummy to hurt, or this food causes this rash, which sets up, this whole energetic opposition to this thing that they can't have, that they're eventually going to be at a friend's house and they're going to eat it anyways. And then they're going to get sick and there's going to be this whole, experience where if you can really start seeing it's not the food, it's the state. It's not the food, it's the emotions going on within the person. And you work with your kids on that level. I mean, this truly is the future. This unschooling is teaching kids to trust their bodies. It's just amazing.
I'm so excited because I truly believe that there will be a time where disease really won't be a thing. I mean, that's my personal beliefs because I can just see the way all of this is going. It's funny you mentioned teeth because my firstborn has had problems with his teeth. I say that he's not ill, but he has. And I know full well the type of person I was because I've had to unlearn all this. I'm not a perfect person. In fact, I was very controlling as a new mum. I was because you are learning how to, well, you kind of copy what your parents do. So then you realize very quickly that this little human doesn't want to do the things that you want it to do. And so you get triggered. And so I've had the perfect opportunity to work on all my triggers with the children. But yeah, I totally can see how he wasn't able to speak his truth when he was little. And I know you spoke to Amelia, met a mother not so long ago. And when I spoke to her, she mentioned that, and it's a theory, I guess, but that sometimes children have one of their life lessons at birth. And it was funny because at Bear's birth, which was horrendous, go into it, but I couldn't say no. I couldn't speak my truth with the people. It's just really interesting anyway. And so, but the good thing is, and this is, I mean, really into this with the kids, and I kind of make up my own stuff, but they know that they can heal their bodies. They know that there is absolutely nothing that they cannot heal from. And that's what I am ingraining into them. But even Bear's teeth, his name's Bear. And so we got a homeopathy, a dentist who's a homeopath. So he's a holistic dentist, which is amazing. So, but we went and they said, look, his adult teeth are actually underneath they're already getting damaged. And in my head, I was like, okay. I was just like, right, we'll see about that. And anyway, 6 months later, they said that they might have to remove some. I mean, he's only 8. So my heart dropped and I had some, guilty feelings. But we went back about a month ago and they said, because we've been doing mindset work with him, when we brush our teeth, we just talk to them and say, wow, thank you, teeth, for being so healthy. Like, thank you. I know you can regenerate, which is unheard of, but we went back and they said, look, it looks to be, let's just play it by ear. It looks to be fine. So he now already is having experience of, I get to heal my cavities even. I get to heal my body. And so, yeah, it's fun because I'm just so excited about it, because this is incredible. This knowledge is incredible. If our beliefs create our experience, and I know you I love it when you post Neville Goddard quotes as well, because I really like him, then it's got to be for all of it. It can't just be like for money and everyone's like, oh yeah, I'll believe the money bit, or, certain areas, but not anything else. So it's so exciting.
Oh my goodness. I love that story. And that is just incredible that yes, body parts can regenerate. Yes, you can heal things that typically people don't heal. And it's the reason that things don't heal is because we've got this big body of belief that things can't heal, or that you get to a certain point, or there's certain areas or certain things that are too big or too much. And, you need this intervention now because, oh, well, you might've been able to do it, 5 years ago, but now it's like, that's a belief, the time lag. It's like you have increased the belief each day. And so if you can unravel that, and that's the thing, is so much of this is unlearning and detaching from expectations and beliefs, and even the belief in aging, the belief in degeneration, the belief in things get worse and worse. I mean, the way that people speak is incredible. I remember a few years back, just being around a group of people. It's like, oh, I'm getting old, or oh, my knees, or oh, this. It's like, you're like 35. And it's because you start speaking in this way, because you learn to, and you're not conscious about your words, and you don't think that your words matter. You don't think that your thoughts matter. And that is the biggest deception of all time, is to think that your thoughts and what goes on. And that's the thing about our world and school, and we're not concerned with what you're thinking about and how you're feeling. We're concerned with your behavior. Just do your homework and be quiet and do the things when I tell you to do them. External. I want to see all of the things, but you can think anything you want inside of your head. We don't teach children that the thoughts you have, when you curse me out in your head, or when you, say something inside of your head, it matters. It influences you. And it's that lack of education about our internal world and how we're perceiving reality, and the story that we're telling is, oh, I hate when this happens, or I hate my tooth because my tooth hurts. It's like, oh, you know how you're reacting to your tooth in that way. We got to send your tooth love. We've got to tell your tooth it's healing and getting stronger. Like this. It's the words we speak to ourselves inside of our minds all day long is what creates our external world. And so that's why, I mean, it's crazy to see people like masks on children. I was just talking to someone about this the other day of, this whole thing that's going on in the world with this fear of this external invisible something that I could get on you, and you're like, oh, put your mask on, you don't want to make grandma sick, oh, do that. And it's just like, ooh, this, you're not realizing the deep implications that this has for small consciousness and their relationship to the world. And that's the thing, is when you believe in outside enemies, outside dangers, or the food's a danger, the germs a danger, this is dangerous, all my body in and of itself could turn on me and it's dangerous. It creates this sense of disempowerment, weakness, and fear. Because of course, if there's all sorts of things outside of you, you want shields, you want to protect yourself as best you can with external things to try to protect yourself from the external enemy. But when you realize that all of the enemies are of your own household, and it really is, it's everything that's going on inside of your mind. It's your concept of the germ. It's your belief about the food. It's your belief that something external to you can harm you, that is damaging. And so it's building up these children from the inside out, telling them, yes, of course you can heal your body. Yes, of course you can can choose your food and you can choose what you want to learn about and you can trust your intuition. It's like, oh, that is so empowering. And these children to realize that, like listen to your thoughts, listen to your mind. What does your mind say? Is there a part of you that's saying, oh, this is bad or you shouldn't do that? Question that thought. Is this thought really true? Did I learn this from someone? And that's just like the next level. I don't, adults really haven't wrapped their mind around the fact that their thoughts and their consciousness and what they're speaking inside the inner conversations they're having all day long is what is creating their entire lives. So we've got to get a handle on that for ourselves as adults, and then, raise up this next generation with this deep knowledge. I mean, that will represent a huge revolution in all things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's us, those of us, I think, doing not courses for children, but courses for parents in how to, because I know people that get this stuff, and we're all on this kind of like self-help or personal growth journey or whatever. So we're trying to get back to how children are. We're trying to regain our sovereignty and govern ourselves again. That's what it is. It's leadership of ourselves. That's what sovereignty is. And yet it's so easy to carry on, not do it with our kids. And I see this, and this is something I'm really passionate about. As we learn, let's remind our children, because they already know, as you said earlier, they teach us anyway. But I love that you mentioned about aging as well, because this is another thing I'm playing with secretly, kind of thinking, right, okay, let's play with this. What can I create in my own body? Because I was talking to my mum, who's going to be 65, and in the UK, I think it's 65 or 67. It's retirement age, and it's so interesting to hear how it's all a mindset. It's all just a program. It's all a program that when they hit retirement age, well, that's it then. They just got to wait to die, basically. But it depends, because everyone's got different beliefs. But yeah, just all of this got to be scrubbed. It's just going to go, isn't it?
Oh my goodness. Yes, that age thing is so huge. These milestones, these arbitrary, constructed ideas about health of like you get weaker over time. I mean, all sorts of things, even around birth of, oh, you're this will never be the same. And that's all, it's just like your expectations of it. It's like, oh gosh, life is just, it's rough, and you think that you peak as a child or a teen, and then everything is downhill in the language that we use. And so look at how it's a spell. It's a magic spell that's been cast over you. And so the thing is unless you consciously come up against it, you're going to just, by just being passive, absorb and take on all of those beliefs. And that's why rising up in sovereignty is seeing, what beliefs am I consenting to? What kind of cultural indoctrination has seeped into my consciousness and that I am operating under, even if I don't realize it? Beliefs about money, beliefs about food, beliefs about, aging and relationships and all of this. It's like, gosh, and that's the power and the essence of all the stuff that I teach individuals is about consciousness and paying attention to what you say to yourself. Is like, do you even know what you believe about aging? Do you even know what you believe about food and health and disease and cancer? It's like, you probably just have default beliefs that have just been told to you, that you've absorbed from your environment, that they're not deliberately and consciously chosen. And therefore, when you get these results in your life, you have to say, ooh, what's the default belief that this result is coming from, and what's the conscious belief that I want to superimpose? I want to rewrite this. I want to reprogram. And when you start really tapping into that magic, that you call the shots, you decide how money works for you. You decide how food goes for you. It's like everything that I eat contributes to my fitness, my beauty, my radiance, my youth and well-being. It's like, that's just how it is. Like if I'm eating a cheeseburger and fries and a milkshake, like this food, it's not a cheat meal. It's not a naughty something that I do sometimes. Like this food is contributing to my youth, fitness, beauty, well-being, and radiance. Like it is. Why? Because I decided that that's how it's going to work. oh, of course people, love my work and want to work with me. That belief, that serves me. I love that belief.
Yes.
It's like, if you're timid or weird or sketchy, if you're trying to start a new business, but there's constant thoughts of doubt, and you've got this idea that only, 10% of small businesses succeed. It's like, ooh, that statistic is poisoning your brain. It's poisoning your results. It's causing you to feel as though everything is up against you and people don't want to pay you, and this is just going to crumble. It's like, look at that belief and look at the results that you're getting, and know that I created this. This is coming from me. Whatever it is in your life, if you can do that without a sense of self-judgment or beating yourself up or shame for what you've created, proudly look at the worst aspect of your life and say, this is coming from me. And if you can do that in the right spirit, that will change everything about your life. You will be a transformed person, because you will start looking at everything and saying, this is coming from me. That's coming from me. I did that. I made this. I created this, but I can uncreate it. Because I made this, I can transform it. And that is sovereignty. That is power. And that's like this ultimate sense of, it doesn't matter. Like, you become this alchemist who turns shit into gold, who takes crappy life circumstances and health conditions and physical issues and whatever, financial problems, relationship issues. And it's like, I can change this. I can transmute and transform this by changing my mind. But you first have to believe that your mind is powerful. Because if there's a part of you that's like, it's just thoughts, you can't change physical reality with just thoughts. These are real, these are hard facts. You have to loosen your grip on the hard facts of reality. You do, and people say, oh, looking through rose-colored glasses, or that's not logical. I don't want logical. I don't want realistic. I want to work with the magical, unseen substance of the universe that causes all of this stuff to come into being to begin with. And so you kind of have to get weird with it.
Yes.
I know you know that.
But yes, all of it. And the language you're using, I'm like, oh, alchemy and transmuting, it is magical. And I keep saying to people, well, if you don't believe in magic, you won't find it. It's choices. We've got choices. And I just love it all. And I must ask, because I know I'll sort of wrap this up soon, but I got you on here now, so I would I want to talk about vaccination. I thought I'd kick myself if I don't ask you, but not about it, only really about beliefs around it. So, we were talking about food and how, that our state of being, I suppose, when we're eating the food, and it's that rather than the actual food. So what would you say to somebody who would apply that then to a vaccine and say, well, I'm going to have a vaccine? Because I've read an article by somebody who, I suppose she's in the spiritual community or whatever. And she's like, she did a video of herself setting the intention as she was having a vaccination for it to sort of transmute and it won't affect me. And she was in a state of well-being, I suppose, as she had it, which is her choice as well. I don't have judgment around it. I'm more curious as to what you would say to that, because I know that you're similar to me about vaccinations. I'm not anti in any way, but it's something that I do not choose because it doesn't align with my vision for the earth, really, for humanity. So what would you say to that?
When you look at just the nature of the vaccine, it is built on an idea of an outside enemy. And so, when you look at why ultimately would you do something like that? Either you're being forced, like you have to, in order to do the things that you want to do, you need this stamp that you've been, given this injection. And so that's some type of coercion. And so, sure, if you're being coerced to do something, by all means, go through the transmutation process, bless it, like be a receptive vessel and say, oh, can only do good things to me, if you're in that situation. But if you're in a situation where it's kind of a choice and you are choosing to transmute something, but it's underlying the vibration or the essence of the transaction, the procedure is one of fear. It's one of an external enemy. It's one of, I'm trying to outwit my body. I'm trying to preempt get my body to do something in defense of this external thing that I believe can cause me harm. And so that, in essence, that is giving your power away. And so, sure, can you go through the process of like this person did to decontaminate the energy and transmute the forces of what's in the, yeah, you could do that. But, you know, you really have to look at, why am I even consenting to this? Because by consenting to it, you're consenting to kind of the body of information from which like the idea of it is birthed, which is outside cause, outside enemy, invisible germs and bugs can hurt me, harm me, cause disease, which is absolutely not true. And when you believe that, you are living in this world of outside enemy, and so it puts you in this disempowered state, because that's what it is in essence. So that's kind of what I would say about that. You know, it's the stuff that's in a vaccination. And just like with food too, it's like, oh, well, I could eat McDonald's every day. You know, people will throw that one out too. It's like, oh, I can eat whatever I want. It's like, but when you are in alignment, when you are in a state of really listening to your intuition and listening to your body, and like, you're not going to choose to eat McDonald's. You're not going to choose to have an injection of, you know, God knows what. You know, you're not going to choose that when you are truly in alignment, because your body, I mean, think about an animal. An animal wouldn't choose to have a shot. They just wouldn't, they would never choose that, because they don't have this concept of an outside thing that can harm, you know, they don't have that concept. So they would never consent to that. If an animal, you know, has a choice between margarine and butter, it's going to eat butter. It's going to eat the thing that is natural. It's going to gravitate towards what is in alignment, which is stuff that is, you know, comes innately out of nature, not from a factory, not from a laboratory. It's not going to choose that, because that is, it's a, you know, that is man-made intervention, interference, unnatural. And so if you were truly in alignment, you'd never go that route. If you were truly in alignment with your nature, because you come out of nature, you are nature, you are the daughter of nature. And so why would I have anything to fear within nature? I have nothing to fear. There is no external outside enemy that can harm me. And so I would never try to trick my body into thinking, you know, oh, here's a small amount of this so my body can mount a defense. This whole defense warlike mentality that we believe is going on at the cellular level, that is man-made projection of our own internal war onto our physical bodies. In reality, there's not even an immune system that's defending. There's just a, you know, our body knows how to keep itself in balance. You know, it knows how to remove debris. You know, I love this example a GNM teacher uses of, like, you know, the garbage at the curb. Does the garbage man attack the garbage? Is it, you know, is it because he's coming and attacking it, or he's just taking it away? And so when we look under a microscope and we see cells, and we say, oh, this white blood cell, it's eating, it's attacking this bad thing, and it's encompassing it. And it's like, well, couldn't it just be cleaning it up, because it doesn't belong in this particular region? And so the body is, you know, going through a cleanup process, or, you know what I mean? And so the warlike attack, defend mentality, it is human. It is based out of fearful, lower consciousness that is really outdated. And when you kind of get up to speed with who you really are and your real power, these things won't concern you any longer.
Oh, Melissa, this is just so good. Totally. And you said about animals not wanting the vaccination. Children, name me one child that would choose to have a vaccination, like and it's funny. And our bodies are always seeking well-being. That's what I say to my kids. Your body is seeking always to get better. Look at this cut. You did one of your story the other day. It was like, I think you said something really like F your vaccine or something, but you did a cut, and I just thought, this is so obvious. But as you say, it's low consciousness, and we are we're expanding our consciousness. So all of this is going to come to light. And I think conversations like this are just part of it. We're doing this work, and thank you so much for even, you know, for agreeing to talk to me. And it's been so valuable, so much information. And so is your website drmelissacell.com?
Yes, it is. And thank you so much for having me. I loved, like, as soon as you said the topic, I was like, yes, let's do this. This is so good. And these conversations, you know, wonderful things always come out of them. And, you know, if you're watching this and hearing, if this is the first time you're kind of coming into contact with some of these ideas, just sit with it, you know, and does it make you feel more free? And, if an idea, if it's like, ooh, that seems really free, but it's almost like scary how freeing that would feel, just sit with it and play with it. And truly, like, there's this spirit within us that wants that freedom to choose, that freedom to trust ourselves. And so, like, whatever's percolating, that part of you wants this freedom and wants this peace and groundedness and this lack of fear. And so thank you so much for having me in this conversation. Yes, my website is drmelissacell.com. You can feel free to reach out if you have any questions or like to connect with me in any way. I would love to chat with you about whatever you have going on.
Oh, thank you, Melissa.